Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing today? Yet another hangout we're going to have streaming away on YouTube. YouTube is fun when it comes to this. Of course, this hangout starts out on Google. You see the topic? Leave your comments in the chat section, of course, over here, right there. So you can chat up a storm if you wish, right over here. And if you want to join the hangout a little later on, you'll have to request that. And once you request it, I'll put the link in very briefly and then I'll disappear the link because I don't want anybody else to join in our chat who shouldn't be there. Trolls. All right. Hopefully the internet holds up. And if it does, it should be interesting. The first thing I always do is I read a piece of scripture. And so the piece of scripture for today is taken from Psalms 119 once again, but verses 69 to 72. I'll be reading across here. So if my face looks away from you, it's because I'm reading across at a screen away from you. So it's going to look a little bit weird. You know what? Let me try and do it. Try and do it this way. How's that? It's more or less the same, isn't it? All right. So anyway, Psalm 62, I'm going to have to look forward here. It says, 69, sorry. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep your precepts with my whole heart. If you do remember, the statutes that we learned the last day had to do with mercy, being merciful to other people. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in your law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn your statutes. And what's the statute? Mercy. The law of your mouth is better to me than thousands of gold and silver. So he's now being tested on being merciful to people who are evil towards him, to people who are lying about him. And I find that very interesting for us today, how we can actually forgive those people without blinking an eye and just move on. Not taking anything personally, even when the people who are trying to get at you are trying to do so personally. To look beyond small matters and to see the big picture. I think that's something that once you are able to do that and hold on to principle, have some sort of ethics and a moral compass and hold on to principle, nothing will scare you, not even death. And when you can hold on to an idea like that, it really brings forth a potency that leads to no compromise. And most importantly, it really empowers people around you to be the same way. All right, let's go into what we're going to talk about. So we're looking at the Shrine of the Amazons, and we're also looking at, I see we have one viewer here. I don't know if that's who that is. There's never really a lot of viewers at any given period of time. Excuse me, I have to yawn. I'm sorry, this looks terrible, but excuse me, I have to yawn. But there's never really a whole bunch of viewers, and it doesn't bother me one bit. I don't even bat an eye because of that, because it's not about feedback for me. It's about getting the message out to you guys out there. For those of you who are looking at this right now, don't forget to put a like. Don't forget you can donate to my channel, and also don't forget you can chat in the chat section right over here. Boo! So let me know you there. I don't care if it's 1, 2, 10, 4, 0 of you. You know, it's all good. This feed is going to come up regardless. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Shrine of the Amazons. This should be interesting. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Those of you who like my videos, you definitely will enjoy this. So if you do remember, in Justice League, we saw that Diana saw the Shrine of the Amazons in that movie. Let me close this down a bit. And I'm just going to go to screen shares. I'm going to go to screen share so you guys can see this better. Oh, yeah. Right? So if you do remember, Hippolyta, she fires this arrow. She fires an arrow up into the air. The arrow happens to be the arrow and bow of Artemis. And Artemis we saw in the flashback scene when Diana was talking to Bruce Wayne about Steppenwolf trying to invade the Earth and convert it into Apocalypse. In attempting to do so, the tribes of man and the Amazons and the gods all came together to fight them off. And one of the gods was Artemis. And so Hippolyta uses Artemis' bow. You can see how big the bow is because Artemis is a huge giant. And she fires this arrow. And this arrow goes all the way across into man's world. And it lands in this sort of shrine here. And you can see there are a number of other little shrines lit there and some lights in the background. And what's interesting about that is that while there is no shrine of the Amazons anywhere in the world, like we don't identify something as a shrine of the Amazons, it is fictitious. It is very interesting how similar that is to Acropolis. For those of you who know, Acropolis is in Greece. It's in Athens, Greece. And Acropolis, basically there is a temple for Athena, the god Athena in Acropolis. Okay, it's called the Parthenon. Okay, and this here is Acropolis, and the Parthenon is this. This is the temple for Athena, and at the side here is the shrine for Athena. Let me give you a better look at that. This is in the daytime. This is the Parthenon, which is, you know, it's been refurbished a bit since that time of this picture here. And here's the shrine of Athena right here. Now remember, the goddess was Artemis, right? Here it is, nicer picture of the shrine here. So you can just see the shrine. And again, some of these incomplete buildings and their coverings are kind of off. But it's just very interesting how similar that is to what we see here. Excuse me. Sometimes that happens where the screen will just shift suddenly on me. All right, so there you have it. And I thought that was just very interesting because I was looking to see if there was anything such as the shrine of the Amazons. And if you look in more detail, when Diana was actually looking at the television screen, which happened to be the BBC, which I thought was really interesting, you may not see this very clearly, but this is saying the island of Crete, or the Isle of Crete. And the Isle of Crete has, well, you can't see it here, it's kind of fuzzy, but that's what it was, the Isle of Crete. And what's interesting about that is that if you go to the Isle of Crete, you actually do see, not necessarily directly related to the Amazons, even though on Crete, the island of Crete, there's, you know, hints to the Amazons. And I'm trying to remember what the name of the people on that island were. They begin with M. I guess you guys can go check that out. And there's some suggestion that these peoples were actually the peoples from which the Amazons came from in a sort of way. So that's all interesting. But we're going to talk about the Amazons in history and how much there's evidence of Amazon-like women in history. And then we're going to talk about actual stories about the Amazons and how this all came about and everything. So we're gonna get to that. But what you see in front of you here is interesting because while this is a fictitious place, the Shrine of the Amazons, it does have a reflection to that in actual Grecian architectural structures. Okay, so there was a shrine to Athena, which is known as the Parthenon, and that's in Acropolis. And also the Parthenon is the temple of Athena, sorry. And then let me show you something else here. So you saw all of this, which is very interesting. I don't know if they patterned this structure off of that. It looks sort of like that. And then we also have here the Temple of Artemis. Sometimes it's called the Temple of Diana. It's found in Ephesus. Ephesus is found in Turkey now. And it's very interesting because this is the actual site where the actual temple is, but it has been kind of almost completely destroyed now. So what they did was they did a reconstruction of that, what is known as the miniature in Turkey. It's another place in Turkey, and they sort of reconstructed that structure because they had basically some of the framework of that structure there. And this here is the Parthenon. It's a very similar structure to Artemis's structure, but this is not in Turkey. This is actually, Parthenon is in Athens of Greece. I just showed you it, and the other structures that are around it. And this is, of course, the Temple of Athena. Now, both of them are, of course, Greek goddesses, from which, of course, Diana and the Amazons, they honor very highly. And I thought that was very interesting that there was these parallels between the Amazons and the shrine of the Amazons and these gods. And it is interesting if you really pay attention to it. You know, she shoots Artemis' bow. If you're going to land in something, you know, it was interesting that, you know, this could easily have been the shrine of Athena, and it easily could have been Athens, Greece, instead of the Isle of Crete. So that would have been very interesting if they had done that. That would actually be an actual structure that's there, you know. But I was just looking to see how much of fantasy they're actually playing with and how much of realism they're actually playing with. And that leads us to, or mythology if you want, but still fantasy. That leads us to another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Penthesilea. Now, we know Penthesilea from Wonder Woman. She's actually an Amazon. But actually, there is actually records from the Trojan War that Penthesilea actually was defending the people of Troy. And this is what she would look like. And there's a video game with Penthesilea in it. And it's called the Trojan War. And actually, as an Amazon, this is something of what she would look like. And what's amazing about that is, if you've been paying attention, you know, a lot of people talking about the belly being out of Penthesilea and the Amazons and stuff. Well, here's Penthesilea from the Amazons. And if you do remember Penthesilea from, this is Penthesilea from Wonder Woman. If you remember Penthesilea, what she looked like in Justice League, she very much resembled this dress gear. And then if you go to the Black Sea, Turkey actually has a whole entire island, the Black Sea Island, where they've given honor to the Amazons. Now, I'm not saying this is something that's an ancient structure. No, it's a recent development that they had. But it's just very interesting that the Amazons are dressed very much like this. Yeah, they don't have a battle axe. They have a long spear, and they have the huge shield and so on. So I just found that when they really decided to pull from antiquity and depict the Amazons and therefore depict Wonder Woman, I thought that they really did a great job of looking at the history, the lore, the mythos of these characters. So let me just go into Penthesilea a little bit. So Penthesilea was actually the Amazonian queen in Greek mythology. That's right. She was the daughter of Ares and Otrera, and she was the sister of Hippolyta, Antiope, and Menelope. You do understand Menelope, Antiope, and Hippolyta are all leaders of the Amazons that we saw in Wonder Woman, as well as we saw in Justice League. Quintus Smyrnus explains more fully than Pseudo-Apollodorus how Penthesilea came to be at Troy. Penthesilea had killed Hippolyta with a spear when they were hunting deer. This accident caused Penthesilea so much grief that she wished only to die, but as a warrior and an Amazon, and she had to do so honorably and in battle. She therefore was easily convinced to join the Trojan War, fighting on the side of Troy's defenders. Okay? So I thought that was just something that was pretty interesting that you may want to know about. Of course, there are poems written about her and stuff. And of course, all mythology has truth to it. And if you go and you check out, well, the evidence, the first bit of evidence they had of female warriors, and therefore hints of women actually being warriors in a war and like literally having an army, a platoon of them, was recently when they went to the Ukraine in Russia, and they unearthed some Scythian warriors. And some of these Scythian warriors, they identify via DNA and so on as being female warriors with their weapons on them, buried with their weapons on them, and some serious contusions and injuries they had. So it pointed towards there being female warriors, evidence that this is probably where the lure of the Amazon came from. But there's also further evidence, and this is around the Black Sea region of Turkey, which would have been like the region of Themyscira. And what's very interesting about this, you know, the Amazons have been known in antiquity and mythos and in Greek mythos and Greek storytelling to have taken over areas like Athens and certain parts of Sparta at certain points in time, Greece, certain parts of Greece. So it's not very surprising that these warriors actually did exist. Of course, this is just a depiction in 1862 depiction of the character of Penthesilea. That's not accurate at all, you know. But there she is with the battle axe, and Amazons actually had a lot of battle axes. Amazons actually wield a lot of axes, and it's very interesting when Zack Snyder was doing his depiction of the gods. They had Ares using a battle axe, and we had Steppenwolf using a battle axe. But it's just interesting that the Amazons also used that weapon, a battle axe. Nobody actually knows this, but we were just talking about it as we were, you know. And they used a variety of other things, from bow and arrows to spears to they had various weaponry. And they also wear various armaments. Oh, they also had shields, and they had various armaments on them. So it's not really surprising when they do the depictions of the Amazons and then depict them as warriors. And these people were raised from birth as warriors, okay? All they knew was war. It's not surprising that these Amazons actually, you know, were built for war and stuff. Oh, but the story of Penthesilea goes like this. So she dies at the hands of Achilles. And Achilles himself, on killing her, I think he lanced her with a spear. He unsheaths her and realizes it's a woman. He didn't know it was a woman. And he sees her beauty and he mourns that, and he's crying and he has great grief. So, and she actually wounds Achilles in the process of fighting him. So just to tell you how badass she was. And the thing about the Amazons and the Scythians and so on, Scythians were not only woman warriors, by the way. They were expert equestrian with the equestrian, or they rode horses very well. And again, that's interesting because, once again, you know, the Amazons, as depicted by Wonder Woman, etc., they very good at riding horses. So it's not surprising to me that the story of the female warrior is not just a myth, okay? And that the Amazons actually did exist, and that these stories and legends that came of them, they're not mythos at all. There's a the actress who plays Hippolyta said, yes, the Amazons actually did exist. And there's a book actually on it, she said, and she pointed to that book. But there's a number of other pieces of evidence you can always look at. The Amazons are seen on many pieces of antiquity, many things from jars to pots, etc. And there are many acts are chronicled in many paintings and drawings. Not painting so much, but sculptures of ancient sculptures. Okay, and so it's not just a myth. I truly believe that, but I think that because they were around so long ago, the evidence for them has been covered by the sands of time, and so that you have to kind of unearth a lot of information to know more about them and their culture and their life. Even though there's a lot of information on them, there's the physical evidence that they actually existed, except up to recently with the Ukraine findings and so on, DNA evidence that they tracked down and stuff on some preserved graves where there was just a good size of them. I think they were about 5'6" in height at the time, which they said was very tall for a woman at that time. So it's very interesting, I must say. And you know, the selection of Penthesilea even that was chosen to be the actress who was chosen to play Penthesilea, she literally has the dimensions and the size and the power to be a Penthesilea. So it's just very interesting that the selection of the actress is sort of embodying that ancient ruler of the Amazons. Oh, the Amazons had two rulers. They had one that actually dealt with domestic issues. So you'd have a ruler who was dealing specifically with things like the Senate and governance of their existence. And then you had the other Amazon who was the leader of war. And so if you look at Antiope and Hippolyta, which were chosen as the two sisters to do that. And it's not that Penthesilea wasn't their sister, but you get that. But you could see that Penthesilea could have been the one who was the leader, and she was the one that was carrying out everything. So it's very interesting. I just thought I would share that with you guys in passing. Now I want to talk about some other things, so I'll try and do that. Let me stop this for a minute here. So yeah, I want to talk about a couple other things that may be intriguing to you guys. First of all, let's talk about something that's coming up. It seems as though they have a plan. I just got that in the news. There's this plan for the bringing forth of Aquaman, where they have something planned before Comic-Con. So that's pretty exciting. The other thing that's I think pretty exciting on the horizon was seeing the new advertisement of Shazam, and he's drinking this drink. Guys, try to break down that if you want. It looks pretty intriguing as well. So I've been sharing various things with you guys based on the DCEU, because that's what I do. I look at the DCEU a bit, and I want to talk to you guys about a couple other issues, not exactly DCEU related, but they are in a way related to us and translation. I was listening to a lady who was talking to another lady recently, and there's this young lady who was kind of a bit discouraged because she was set up when she was studying for medicine, and she was studying with her friends, and the friends tried to set her up and put her in a bad light because they thought she was shining too brightly. There's no such thing, folks, as shining too brightly. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're shining too brightly. Don't shine so brightly." Don't ever listen to them. What develops you is being the full, complete, uninhibited expression of yourself. And it's risky. And sometimes, think of Joseph. He didn't compromise. He was shining very brightly. And a corrupt woman lied about him. And he was sent to prison. But he never compromised the spirit that was in it. It was called an excellent spirit. Daniel was shining very brightly, and they said, "Oh, you shouldn't shine so brightly." So they tried to find something to take him down, and that was the den of lions. And he was tossed into a den of lions, right? And the scripture today was talking about how the proud has forged a lie against me, but I will keep your precepts with your whole heart. Excellence. You have to, as a person, not compromise your position on things. Even what I'm doing right now, where I told a certain group, and I told two groups, I said, I'm not taking this down. I'm putting this back up. Anytime you guys get me access to your group, I'm putting it back up, because there's no reason why you should censor this. You have to be non-compromising about principle things. And you have to start learning to do that as soon as possible, because the world today, the morality of the world is shifting, and people are compromising a lot of things to win favor with other people. So I don't care if you're studying. I don't care if you're in a workplace. Don't try to fit in by compromising your beliefs. Don't do it. You may be seen as a villain. You may be seen as a bad guy, whatever. But if you know that what you're doing is the right thing, keep doing it. It's not the recognition for what you're doing that's important. It's that it gets done. Wicked people, they're very, very, and for destruction, they're very continuous in what they're doing. Look at Donald Trump. Racism. They're pushing that agenda whether you like it or not. Well, then, similarly, you must stand up and push for the right thing, whether people like it or not. It's not about pleasing people. And that's why I appreciate guys like Zack Snyder, who put out stuff not just to please the fans, but something more. I appreciate the director of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, who said, I am not making this for the fans. You have to make things for yourself sometimes, what you think would be the best thing. If you think about the fans, you go all over the place. You have to focus on what story you're trying to tell, what you're trying to give to the world. If you really want to have a meaningful, You get this huge platform for a blockbuster, right? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to let the suits do things and people give you platitudes and praise you, but really you gave nothing to the world? Or are you going to give the world something? And while people will feel controversial and feel all kinds of how about it, and they'll hate you for it, it doesn't matter, because it's what's done that's important. You have to become somebody of principle. And the only way I can think of somebody doing that is if something within you is driving you to do that, a desire to only do good. And that's why this scripture here is so very important. I want to come back to it because I want to strengthen you guys. I don't want anything to make you afraid and inhibit you from doing the right thing, doing a good thing. When you start to live for principle, life and death doesn't mean much. It's the principle that must carry on. It's qualities that are eternal. And that's what makes us eternal. And if we move away from those things, if we are compromising in those things, you have to be uncompromising in those things. And there is a right way and a wrong way about things. Yes, there's a wide ambit through which you can operate and do right things. There are many different ways to do right things, of course. But there is a right way and a wrong way to do something. And that compass, that ethical compass, that moral compass must never be compromised. I listen to some people, they want to please other people. Oh, you're offending certain people, so don't say certain things. We need to please people so we can get people in our group and we can get people to watch our views and stuff. No, 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 no. No, you will not censor me, and you must not censor yourself or allow yourself to be censored for things which are ethical things. Things that have to do with equality. You have to stand up for them. All right? And if you do not speak on things that are wrong happening around you, which directly relate to you and other people, where you should open your voice and say something, it's like a sin of omission. You're basically condoning that thing. You must speak on these things. That's why I told you guys, you must speak out. If you see that gun control is necessary in places where, ethically speaking, the people who are responsible for these things are turning a deaf eye, a blind eye on them, and they are doing nothing, when these people who have the power to do something are not doing it, you must speak out. Remember, these people are serving you. The government serves you. You put them there to run the country. If they're not doing a good job, you must speak out on it. And you do have the power not just to remove them after their cycle of power comes around. No, you have the power to hold them accountable while they are in power. And you must use that voice. I never recommend people turn to violence and shooting other people, killing other people. There are so many other ways to go about holding people accountable for what they do and prosecuting it if necessary. And that goes for the police. That goes for anyone. We need to, there are two very important things for us to understand as a community. The first thing we need to understand is we have power, tremendous power. Power beyond just voting people in or voting people out or conforming to a government or conforming to an institution. Remember, these things were made for you to have a better life. That's what any government is, that's what it's for. You have to understand that. And while you cannot behave as if you're entitled to certain things which you are not entitled to, with the freedoms given to you, you must use them to ensure that certain things which should be put in place so your freedoms can be continued forward are done. If someone is abusing power, we must point it out. Okay? Like I said, Kylie Wallace from DC Watchtower has abused her power to try to censor me. And then the other admins will side with her, obviously, eventually, and they will try to work as one because they want to squash the issue. But it's been an immoral issue where someone is just trying to exert their authority on something because they have no answer to it. And so that's why I put her on blast, and I will, because it's wrong, morally and ethically. I don't need Kylie Wallace to spread what I need to spread. But my point is, we pointed out, while we are merciful, we will not allow wrongdoing to happen on our watch and just let it slide and just let it go and not say anything about it. We will speak about these things. That's the power we have. We don't have to go punching people and hitting people or even character assassinating people. That's not the point behind it. It's to point out the hypocrisies and to point out the wrongdoing and to encourage the people who have the power to make sure, and we hold them accountable and make sure that they correct that situation. So when this young lady, I heard her and she was discouraged and everything, I wanted to tell her parent, I said, you need to tell her to just be herself and continue doing what she's doing. Continue doing what you're doing. You know, one of the things about life is this. People always say you have to be discreet and stuff. Listen, man, I'm 43 years old. I can tell you right now, at the end of the day, you use your platform and your voice. Okay, so maybe you get kicked out of a business or you get kicked out of a job, then employ yourself and move forward with the gifts and skills you have to give to the world. No money can pay for that. So you continue doing that, no matter what happens to you, because all kinds of things can happen to you when you start to shake up the world and you have people thinking about things and having them consider things that they didn't consider before. People feel challenged. They feel because they have a certain value on themselves. They anchor themselves in what they do. They feel intimidated by that. So what? You know what? At the end of the day, it's not your fault that they feel intimidated. It's on them. You have to continue to proceed to be what you are. Otherwise, you will not do what you're supposed to do. And at the same time, if they react and they put you in a very perilous position, remember, you got God on your side. And what needs to be done will be done. Because he didn't give you those gifts to just get them snuffed out. So if it isn't finished by you, it'll be finished by somebody else. It'll go on. And that's all that matters. And you have to become a servant and a slave to a positive idea. Look at Superman. He's killed. He was annihilated because he was a threat to Lex Luthor, right? But he lived for the ideal he believed in. He was discouraged for a season, but then he lived for the ideal that he believed in. That's what you have to be as well. You're going to be seen as all kinds of things by people in the world, especially controversial. When you start to rock the boat, either way, because you're speaking the truth and people cannot find a way to debunk what you're saying that's true. They'll try and spin it and all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, they know it's true. And they know that it affects the system that they have. Of course, they're going to come at you. You're going to be like a target everywhere, bullseye on your chest. But guess what? That's the only way change is going to happen. That's the only way we have effective communities. And maybe you get snuffed out of the equation, but somebody else gets inspired by you and carries on the torch. You got to be fearless, folks. And you have to decide, this is what I stand for, and this is true. So I represent it. And believe you me, there'll be equally someone who has the false truth with them who will feel the same way. Because wicked people, they try to, you know, in this world, they succeed at certain things to start with, and they have that similar mindset. So it's going to happen. But the difference is how you handle something. Whereas they will handle it in a sleazy, underhand way, and they will try to do something dishonest, and they will try to, you know, do evil things. You're not seeking to do evil. And the proof is in the pudding. When you're not seeking to do evil, people are going to see it. They're going to know. Yes, there are people who can emulate it very well and manipulate other people. But I'm telling you this one thing. The truth stands the test of time, folks. Maybe you don't, but it will. That's one thing we're guaranteed. We know what the end is. We know Jesus is returning for a third time. No, not a second time. If he's inside of you, he's returned a second time already. A third time I'm talking about. the time when he comes back as the Son of Man. And so at the end of the day, you have to be able to stand rooted and grounded in what the Lord's showing you. You have to learn to be taught of God. You don't have to learn to be, just open your mind to that. And don't be afraid of anything. Don't be afraid to say when something is wrong that it is. Don't be afraid to say when something is right that it is, because people need encouragement. All right. So I wanted to just share that, which is separate from the DCU, but yet I use DCEU analogies in it. You know, whatever I like, I'll throw it in there. You know, Krypton's another interesting development, because if you look at it, some people, they started to hold on to an ideology that they believe when they started seeing the truth of the situation. And again, you know, as a community, as a group of people in communities, like what's happening in the United States right now. As a group of people in the communities, what happens is the truth comes out there. And then what somebody else might do is they'll try and spin it, and then they'll throw a whole bunch of stuff in front of you. A lot of information to cloud the truth. There's a lot of clatter up in there. Let me tell you something. This is what I've learned. I can't say this is the law, and this is not a rule completely, but you know one thing about the truth? One thing about the truth you can guarantee of is the truth in the midst of all of that cloud and hashtag, the truth continues very clearly. It may not appear so in the beginning when you're watching all that hullabaloo, but if you take your time and start going into things, you'll see it. It takes a little time to see it, but you take your time and you go into things, you'll see it. Because usually the truth has a foundation, and it's very consistent with its foundation. Whereas all the static that's used to mask the truth, because it don't have no foundation, it's not linked together so consistently as the truth. And that's what people use to solve crimes, detectives and so on. They look at all the other things around them and they, okay, these things kind of superficially connect, but not as strongly as this. Usually that's how they get all the evidence to point in a certain direction. See? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's 12:01. Half the day is gone where I live. I see 4 of you are watching now. That's pretty cool. You guys have a great one, man. Oh, 6 of you watching now. Okay, good. 5 now. That's funny. Yeah. So I'm about to wrap it up. Too bad you guys are coming in so late. But shout out to Dave Ethan. I like what he's doing on Google, the Google group. And shout out to you, R2. I'm about to wind down, bro. I'm sorry that you just missed me, but that's all right. I hope you have a great day, bro. And all the other people who just came through. I always do these spontaneous podcasts, spontaneous streams. So, you know, I can't predict when I'm going to do a next one. You never know. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be 2 days from now. Tonight's Krypton, by the way, the final episode of Krypton. I may be up to see it. I may not be up to see it. Depends on how tired I am. I may sleep before it. I may miss it. Who knows? But what I want to say to you guys is, at the end of the day, these movies are supposed to be a sort of shadow of what we are dealing with in real life. And this is what the producers, the directors, the writers, they try to suggest something of substance to us. They're not always absolutely successful in what they do, but that's what you want to look for. You want to look for stuff where people see what people would experience, you know, being in sometimes very difficult situations or being in a very difficult industry, how they decide to couch things and say certain things to people that would have substance. When you get a platform, a big platform, you want to say something, folks. You know, I listen to a lot of people talk about, you know, nonsensical stuff and Some people don't necessarily want something preached to them. Well, you know what? I don't really care. You know, I don't personally care if you don't want to be preached to or not, because I can't live my life trying to please you. I have to live the right life how I'm supposed to live it, and how I'm supposed to actually conduct myself. In which case, if I'm going to give you the moral of the story at the end of the day, and you don't like that, then don't watch it. It's really that simple. Why put yourself through that? But on the other hand, you know, that's just me, and that's how I am. And there's always a point to what I'm doing. So if you don't like it, then just don't listen to it. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a good one. Blessings to everybody. Have a great day.